Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 23 of Comic Book Cove. Technology is great, except when it isn't. And why did we call it that theme? Well, this theme, when we look at the comic books, we always kind of come up with fun little themes that we can kind of squeeze in. And we've looked at it. Each issue has a bit of technology or a scientific creation that kind of goes astray. That's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah. Some of them, some of those are robot rebellions. Some of those are just random pieces of machinery that just go completely haywire and transport you to a foreign land.
Or giant creatures that can absorb and become more powerful and be programmed to walk a straight line of destruction.
Yeah.
Or a Zeta beam that is bouncing every which way except the way that it's supposed to pick you up.
Yeah.
And technology created by 1,000-year-old, millennium-year-old guardians that takes willpower, takes fear, takes avarice, and makes constructs. Mm-hmm. So technology is great, except when it isn't. Mm-hmm. This episode of Comic Book Cove, we're going to discuss the following titles. Aquaman number 8. Death of Hawkman number 1, Justice League number 6, Green Lanterns number 8, Cyborg number 2, and Superman number 8. And as always, spoilers ahead. Aquaman number 8, Unstoppable Part 1. Well, the giant monster Nemo is blazing a path, not blazing because he's walking very deliberate, is walking a path of destruction. It seemed like at first through Atlantis, but we find out a little bit of this monster is called the Shaggy Man. Mm-hmm. And I had to look it up what the Shaggy Man was. Looks like it was a creature that has some history in the DC universe.
Yeah, for shame, Tom. You had to look that up?
I had to look it up because, I didn't know who the Shaggy Man was.
Yeah, well, the Shaggy Man is, as best I remembered, some sort of robot, biohumanoid Sasquatch-looking thing that's fought the Justice League more than once. They've never really been able to beat it. Once they ended up with two Shaggy Mans, and they had to pit two Shaggy Mans together, and they ended up basically destroying each other.
Yeah, and they fought to a standstill.
The only real part of the Shaggy Man I remember is, late '90s, General Wade Ealing ended up transferring his consciousness into a Shaggy Man body, and then he shaved off all the fur, so he was just a big, weird-looking guy, and he called himself the General, and that was, that sort of made him unstoppable. But so we know Nemo has at least one Shaggy Man. They've sent him on to Atlantis, what looks like Atlantis, one of the cities or outlying cities of Atlantis, but they find out, looking at the trajectory, Atlantis is just collateral damage.
Right.
He's actually heading towards Amnesty Bay, which is where Aquaman grew up on land. And it seems like that's a deliberate choice by Black Manta to send him to destroy Aquaman's childhood home. You
know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the Death of Superman, Doomsday. That's what it reminded me of, was when this creature was walking deliberate. Aquaman takes his best shot, gets knocked right through Atlantis, part of it, and then the Deluge come after it. Or was it the Deluge? The Deluge. They go, and the attacks, he's healing up from the attacks. He takes everything, and he's getting stronger. It reminded me of Doomsday. A lot of parallels to this, that straight line. Reminded me of Doomsday a lot.
Yeah, very. And it's also that, there's that personal aspect that, apparently Black Manta knows that he's from Amnesty Bay.
Right.
And it's interesting that he would pit the Shaggy Man against Amnesty Bay, because it seems like that's either to really crush Aquaman's spirit, and then, with him sort of taken out as the king because he's too grieving over Amnesty Bay, maybe then the other Atlanteans will declare war on the surface, or that's to make Aquaman enraged and then have him declare war on the surface. I mean, it seems like that's the reasoning behind that, because Black Manta already said that Nemo is underestimating Aquaman.
Yes.
Is
Yep.
that, he was farther along in figuring out what they were up to. So it'll be interesting to see what Black Manta wants from that, and it'll be more interesting to see if they can actually stop the Shaggy Man, because they hadn't really made any headway.
No, they've all the strength of concussive blast, nothing. Aquaman bounced really, knocked right out. Nothing's working so far.
Yeah, all they really seem to do is make him look more like the Shaggy Man as we remembered him.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you remembered him. I had to look.
Well,
him up.
I
But
vaguely remembered him. I mean, I grew up with the Who's Who of the DC Universe books, so
Oh, I love those books.
you'd have to really be scraping the bottom of the barrel to find somebody that I don't know.
Was it Dr. Morrow who created the Shaggy Man? Was that what they said?
Yeah, T.O. Morrow.
Yeah,
I
T.O.
think.
Morrow.
Yeah.
They brought that up. So
Or no, Professor Ivo. They brought up Professor
Ivo, yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Which would kind of make sense. Kind of a Mazo type creature, just absorbing.
Yep.
Really cool. The other part of this issue was Mira going through the trials to become, if you want to say, a respectable queen, to become a, what's the word I want to use, is a worthy, to become worthy with the widowhood, the elders.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Kind of reminds me of, I'm blanking on the name of the film, but it's where that, the princess who finds out she's a princess has to go off to this school to become a princess. It's that sort of weird thing that you see in
coming of age stories.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
Disney
in
coming
fiction
of age.
and videos for
Yes.
girls. Like, whoa, they're doing that in a comic now.
Yep.
And it's also worth noting that this order that Mara is supposed to study with, which is called the Widowhood, which is apparently
Right.
the widows of men who have died in the service of Atlantis, and they're now, Aquaman describes them as the mothers of the city, or the maternal spirit of the city.
Yes.
They don't like Mara.
No, they don't.
And they're also apparently stuck with her for months at this point.
Which Mira did not want to be. She was, do I have to study? Can you just give me the reading list? Can you download it on my smart tablet, my Kindle, and I can just read them in the company of my own home?
Yeah, and Aquaman didn't even seem aware of the fact that she would be there for months.
No, he didn't.
Until one of the other guys mentioned that.
And he was, no, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, and it's Aquaman and Mara are fighting a war on two fronts. They're fighting, the surface world, which doesn't necessarily trust them, but which he wants to have a trusting relationship with. And they're also fighting this conservative aspect of Atlantean culture that doesn't necessarily accept him fully as a king, because he was born on land. He has ties to the surface world.
Yep.
And his future bride-to-be isn't even from there. I mean, she's an outsider. She's not considered welcome.
No.
Yeah, and Mother Satya of the Widowhood is not a fan of Mara at all.
No, she's not a fan of really the person or where she comes from.
Yeah, and she makes sort of the ultimatum at the end that if Mara doesn't stay with the Widowhood, which at this point she doesn't want to stay, because Mara's also kind of aware of the fact that the sirens are going off, that the Shaggy Man's getting there, and she should really be off helping her
Mira is a
husband.
warrior at heart.
Yeah, and Satya warns her, if you leave, you're not getting married.
Yep.
So
That's an ultimatum right there.
yeah,
That's pretty much a straightforward issue of Aquaman. A great beginning of a story arc. What's going to happen with the Shaggy Man plowing the path through Amnesty Bay, and can Mira respect the ancient traditions and cultures of Atlantis to prove herself worthy, or will she just leave and be by her future husband's side to battle whatever comes at his way?
yeah.
Aquaman number 8. The Death of Hawkman number 1. Out of Time, Part 1. When we look through these issues, I saw Hawkman. Hawkman is a fascinating character because of the many different iterations that he's had throughout the DC universe, and a lot of his different origins, and also the science fiction aspect of Hawkman. And then you get Adam Strange, which is part of like the DC. You have the core DC universe where I'm talking about Earth, and then you have outer space with the Green Lantern, and then you have this far out reaches of outer space, and that's always been what, to me, Hawkman and Adam Strange represent, is that Rann-Thanagar War is really kind of the outer regions of the DC science fiction realm of stories. So I thought it'd be interesting just to kind of see where this little limited series goes. Give me a little background about Adam Strange and Hawkman.
Yeah, well, this looks like a very different take on Adam Strange. I mean, classically, he's a guy from Earth. He's an archaeologist. He ends up basically getting transported to an alien planet. He falls in love. He gets a wife, and he basically becomes a, gun-toting, jetpack-using superhero on Rann. And this version, he's pretty much. I mean, he has all that the same. This time, however, he splits his time between Earth and Rann. So part of the time he's on Rann, he's a superhero. Part of the time he's on Earth, and it shows him. On Rann, he's firing his laser gun. On Earth, he's cleaning a window. Yep. It's this fun juxtaposition between the outrageous and the absolutely mundane. To me, it felt a lot like the John Carter series. We had the Disney movie where sometimes he's on Earth during the Civil War, other times he's on Mars. He has a girlfriend, he's hanging out with aliens. And when he's on Earth, he's trying to get back to Mars. And it's same with Adam Strange. When he's on Earth, he wants to get back to Rann. So to the point that when he's expecting the Zeta beam to hit and get transported back to Rann, he's a little confused when it doesn't bring him back. And because he really wants to get back.
Give me Hawkman. What makes Hawkman such a twisted soul in the DC universe? And when I mean twisted soul, he's gone through so many iterations of his origin, his story is very convoluted at times, and they've straightened it out a few times only to embrace the chaos that is.
Oh yeah, and this just calling a title "The Death of Hawkman" feels like it's going to convolute that a lot more. I don't know. I like Hawkman a lot as a hero. I've enjoyed. There was originally the mystical aspect where he was the reincarnation of an ancient Egyptian warrior.
Yes.
Then there's also the
Carter
sci-fi aspect where where he goes from being Carter Hall, the archaeologist, to Qatar Hall, the Thanagarian policeman, which always just kind of blew my mind. Which almost is like, why would you do that? Yep. And then kind of blending those together for a while, and then, we're back to New 52 Hawkman, which sort of evens the playing field a little bit. I mean, it's a new version of him. He doesn't necessarily have the convoluted backstory of...
I agree with you. When you say Death of Hawkman, again...
It's going to get convoluted.
Right. And what about this Rann-Thanagar War? I'm familiar with it. Give us a little brief history of... they've always seemed to be in conflict.
Yeah, Rann-Thanagar War really started... it was right around the time of some of the War of the Light stuff. Yeah. And, Rann and Thanagar are two fairly powerful scientific planets. It makes me think like the Justice League episodes. Thanagar tried to invade Earth at least once. Yeah. Not because they're evil, just because it would be a strategic move for them. Somehow there was some manipulation. They ended up being in conflict with each other. And then you end up with Hawkman and Adam Strange, who are, the two heroes of each who have to figure out, okay, do we fight one another? Do we team up with one another? Do we try to stop our planets from fighting? What happens? So it just ends up being one of those crazy manipulation things. In this, we have Thanagarian suicide bombers, which is not a phrase I ever thought I'd say.
Right.
And they're trying to kill Adam Strange. Too many Stranges. At least I didn't call him Hugo Strange. They're trying to kill his wife, Alana, and they refer to them as the butcher scientists of Rann. And it's also worth noting, the cover to this issue has Despero on it. And Despero doesn't make any appearance in this issue, but it seems like if there's anybody behind the scenes pulling strings, it's going to be the guy with 3 eyes and a fin on his head. Yep. It's going to be him. It has to be him. So we'll see. We'll see what's happening.
Right. This issue kind of like there's not a lot of story, but there's a lot of pieces being set up. And give us a little rundown of the Zeta beams. The significance of the Zeta beams is they transport Adam Strange to Ron back and forth. But this time, they're firing on every which way but where he needs to be. The technology is maybe being manipulated, maybe not working, but it's kind of suspicious on where they're firing at.
Yeah, it's almost like a malfunctioning transporter. I mean, that's basically what the Zeta beam is, like a transporter from Star Trek. And it just so happens when Adam Strange works with Cyborg to figure out where these Zeta beams are hitting.
Yep.
They're hitting in Gotham City, they're hitting in Metropolis, they're hitting at Belle Reve Prison, which is probably not the best place for a transporter beam from outer space to be hitting. So he goes to all those places, and they're kind of funny scenes where, he just walks into LexCorp and says, "Hi, I'm with the Justice League," and he goes to Belle Reve and pulls out his Justice League membership card, and the guards say, "Really? We don't remember you from the Justice League."
Right.
And it's just this funny mixture of how he operates and how he does that, but he also doesn't find out very much.
No.
I mean, there's seemingly nothing being taken.
Right.
Or anyone being taken.
Right. And this issue starts off with kind of once again, another flash forward where we're seeing Adam Strange and Hawkman in the field. And Hawkman is kind of addressing his wounds, and Adam is, well, how did I even get here? And this is where they play that odd couple moment of Hawkman doesn't really thinks that Adam Strange needs to really toughen up a little bit more, trying to toughen him up. Is he maybe trying to get him toughened up to take his place when he dies? We don't know. But what we do know, when we talked about this earlier, is when you put death of and then Hawkman, now we get a little bit more of the muddying up of, all right, are they going to add to the origin? Are they going to take away? Is this going to be another chapter of, will we get another Hawkman, another Hawkwoman? Is this Shira Hall, this Carter Hall? Where do we go from this? And it's funny, we're laughing about it because it just happens so much that it's just part of the mythology of Hawkman is there's more than one mythology.
Yeah, but because it's Hawkman, we're also crying on the inside because
yes.
This means it's going to be even more convoluted. It's also worth noting, I mean, one of the things I mentioned, I'm not even sure he's going to die.
Right.
We'll see if he even dies. I mean, it's called Death of Hawkman. You would kind of assume he would die. I mean, he's got a bunch of arrows sticking out of him at the beginning of this. We'll see. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if this ends up being a new version of a character. I mean, like we saw with Dr. Fate. There's the new Dr. Fate aside from Kent Nelson. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes. I think Earth 2 Hawk Girl was a pretty neat take on Hawk Girl. So it would be interesting to see if they did another sort of thing like that. Maybe not even using a character of the same race or not. But we'll see.
Right.
Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? It's funny to us, and we might get a good story out of it, and that's really what is what's important. And we're going to take our first break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss Justice League number 6 and Green Lanterns number 8. We'll be back in just a moment.